For 22 years, she hoped for an answer. That's when she realized it was all about the journey and that God had been there for her the whole time.
There's a whole lot that I don't recall specifically, but I know this: the car vehicle was upside down and they were trying to get me out, and there was music playing in my head.
On a snowy Christmas day in 1987, Dahlia Knox was in a car with her sister and brother-in-law when they were hit by a drunk driver.
I was semi-conscious, then I went unconscious, and so then I woke up in the hospital.
Although the others escaped with minor injuries, the crash left Dahlia paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors told her she would likely be confined to a wheelchair the rest of her life.
From there on, I went through, like, what do I do from here now? Where do I go from here?
Dahlia was determined to live her life. An accomplished gospel singer, she continued her work in music ministry, but her life was hard.
I would continue to go and sing, and I would push myself, into the restroom or the shower, whatever, and then I would drag myself into the car, and I would push myself. It was one of those things where you had to drag yourself, you had to push yourself.
Dahlia believed God would heal her as people prayed constantly for her. But after a decade passed with no changes, she started to lose hope.
I didn't like going to altar calls because every time I would go somewhere, the service would change to a healing service and somebody would try to pull me out of the chair, and I've been plopped, dropped, flopped, and flipped, and to the point where I was like, I just can't go through that anymore.
While attending a Christian conference, she was captivated by one of the speakers, Bishop Levy Knox.
It was so amazing because he didn't see the wheelchair, he saw beyond the wheelchair.
He later became her husband and a major source of inspiration for Dahlia.
I remember him taking me in front of the mirror at home and holding me up and just saying, I want you to see yourself standing. He would take me and dance with me, and just, as my legs would dangle, he would take me around. And he was one that always continuously tried to put hope and faith in me as to think beyond that, even though times I was frustrated about it.
By 2010, Dahlia had been in a wheelchair for over 22 years. In August, she and her husband attended a conference hosted by evangelist Nathan Morris.
The evangelist went up and he started speaking on healing and all that. Had I known it was a healing service, I have to be honest, I would have never gone.
She was at the front of the church with her husband when Pastor Morris started praying for her.
Here I am confined for 22 and a half years in this wheelchair. And for the first time, the longest time, I find myself that something could possibly really be happening. I said, I keep feeling something in my legs.
The power of God is all over this sister right now. She knows there's no feelings, but she can feel our hands on her legs.
I had to get to the heart of it, and the heart of it was, are you willing to risk your pride and take a step of faith, even if you fall?
With the assistance of her husband, Dahlia slowly rose. She later stumbled and sat back down, fighting to block out the doubts flooding her mind.
I remember the words that he prayed were, let faith arise in this woman of God. In Hebrews 11, faith is in the present and the now. It's standing between two present terms. Now faith is. And I sat there and a righteous indignation came in me, a righteous anger came in me. I just said to them, just worship, just worship, just worship, because I wanted to drown everything that was going out. I just worship, just right, worship, worship, worship.
Then her husband and Pastor Morris helped her back on her feet. She took a few steps on her own. Then, as the congregation sang and prayed, Dahlia started walking around the church.
People will tell you that you can move on your hips. And so I thought, was I moving on my hips? I just started moving my knees up and down, and I started bouncing on my knees. It was like the awakening. This is really happening.
She began to take those steps and begin to walk. It was like the word that had already been spoken beholding the word, hearing the word, and now the manifestation of the promises of God was being fulfilled right before our eyes. It was phenomenal. It was life-changing for us.
Over the following weeks, she says God began to strengthen her legs. 3 weeks later, she walked in front of her own congregation for the first time. Today, Delia leads worship at Living Word Christian Church in Mobile, where her husband is the pastor. She also dances with him every chance she gets.
The miracle is the journey, is not the moment. It's the journey of recognizing who God is. If he would have never healed me, I would still be pushing through to get into his face. Because it's not about the healing, it's about the journey of knowing that God is there for us.
What a powerful story. Pat, when we go through a battle like Delia's, is there a point where we stop asking God to change things?
The Bible was written not in English, but in Greek, and it was written in Hebrew. So the Hebrew language, but particularly the Greek language, has all kinds of tenses, and the words have much more expression than our words do. Now, when Jesus was talking to us, that's what we have in the New Testament is in Greek. And he says, ask, seek, and knock. And you say, okay, ask, seek, and knock. But in each case, that is the Greek present tense. And what it means is keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking. And he that keeps on asking will receive. He that keeps on knocking, the door will be open, and so forth. That's the way it is. Now, the Lord didn't tell us to ask one time and then stop. But here's the deal. You can ask, and the Lord at that moment says yes. And when he says yes, then you don't have to ask anymore. Then you start thanking him because he's already said, yes, I'll give it to you. So begin to thank him. On the other hand, God will say, no, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I had one example, I won't go into in great detail, when I was praying for somebody who was brain dead, asking God to bring a miracle and bring this girl back to life. And the Lord gave me a Bible verse. I opened my Bible and it said, blessed are they who die in the Lord from henceforth. And that was God's answer. So he says, she's going to die. She did. Now don't ask anymore. But I kept on asking because I didn't want to agree with God. But God had given me an answer. So that's what you do. But some people pray. I think it was George Muller who prayed for somebody to be saved for about 50 years. And finally that person, after Muller had died, he accepted Jesus. So your prayers have a long life. Don't stop until the answer comes. But once God says yes, then you say it's okay. I mean, it's like you got a little child, you got a teenager, just got his driver's permit, and he wants to use the car. So you have a family car. The teenager says, Dad, can I have the car? Dad's reading the paper, doesn't answer. Dad, can I please have the car? And Dad's reading the paper, and the teenager says, Dad, please, can I have the car? And the dad reaches into his pocket, hands the keys, goes back to his paper. Now, what does a teenager do if he's got any sense? He'll say, thank you, take the key, go get in the car, and go drive. But if he stands there and says, oh, Dad, please, 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 give me the car, the dad said, are you out of your mind? I've just done it. You've received an answer. Okay.
It sounds like in so many of the things that we've talked about, just in the stories that we've seen, a lot of our response needs to be listening carefully to what God's speaking to our own hearts.
Terry, prayer is a sort of a dance with God. It is a dialogue with the Father. And what we need to do more than anything else is exactly what you just said. We need to listen to him. We need to say, God, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And then once we have heard what he wants to do, then we speak it into being. It's easy. You know, God said, I'm healing that woman in the name of Jesus. Get up. You know, it's done because we've already heard from the Lord. And so most of prayer should be listening to God and a lot less talking. But instead of that, our prayer is, oh, Father, give me, 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 give me. And the Father says, listen, be quiet. Be still and know that I am God. That's the answer. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among all the nations of the earth. I am the creator of everything. Now will you stop your yammering and listen to me? That's what he wants.
Well, as we saw in that last story, some of our struggles can last a very long time. The woman you're about to meet